very good morning to everyone. It's very wonderful to see how many people have joined in. So we are here gathered to discuss the webinar, The Garden, Your Opportunity. And we are joined here by a very nice panel of speakers. We have Kees Bronk, we have Remco Kemper, and we have Laurens. They will later introduce themselves, and we will go through a various round of discussions, topics. But for now, I would like to welcome you all and just give you a very short introduction about CBI, because this webinar is being hosted by CBI. So first, let me introduce myself. So my name is Mirjam van der Gaas, and I work as a program manager at CBI. So CBI, in a nutshell, stands for the Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. And our main mission is to support the transition towards sustainable and inclusive economies. CBI does this by connecting SMEs from developing countries to the European and regional markets, whereby we focus on promoting and creating decent jobs, specifically for women and youth, as well as stimulating sustainable trade and production. So the SMEs are really the starting point of our work, and we offer practical solutions to eliminate bottlenecks experienced in the value chain. So our approach is twofold. So first of all, we implement projects in our focus countries. You can find the list of focus countries on our website. And we also, via our projects, we help prepare SMEs to successfully enter international markets, providing them with hands-on and tailor-made assistance based on their specific needs. This can be, for example, assistance with regards to market development, matchmaking, branding, certification, CSR, and so on. And secondly, we provide market intelligence information about exporting your products and services to the European markets. So CBI works in 23 countries, mainly in Africa, and we are based in The Hague, the Netherlands, and we are part of the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, RVO, and being funded by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As you can see here, we work with a very broad range of actors, ranging from governments, organizations, to knowledge institutes, to NGOs. And every year we support on average around 600 SMEs per year. And over the years, we have really collected a very broad network of international and local experts, which we actively involve in our projects. As you can see here is just an overview of some of the projects that we are implementing, ranging from Bangladesh to Indonesia to Cambodia and Laos. And if you can go to the next slides. So just for the sake of time, I will only delve a little bit deeper into the aspect of market intelligence. So for over 30 years, we have experience in developing high quality market intelligence information on the European markets for local SMEs and business support organizations. And this includes market studies, market access requirements, tips on finding buyers, tips on exporting, tips on going digital, as well as country and product fact sheets, as well ranging from baskets to soap, to garden furniture, from rugs to cushion covers. And all the information that we provide is free of charge. So you can easily access them online or offline by simply going to the CBI website, which is www.cbi.eu. And our work spans across 14 different sectors, mainly in agriculture, but we are also active in the service industries, such as apparel, and of course, the home decoration, home textile sector, of which this webinar is a part of. And you can finally go to the final slides. So this is just a very short recap of how our website looks like. If you go to market intelligence and then go to home decoration, home textile, you will find all these very nice, interesting studies. So please make sure to reach out. That's it for now from my side. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But for now, I would like to give the floor back to Kees.
Okie dokie, thank you so much. Maybe you can explain just quickly how everybody can put questions. How can they do that?
So if you are, of course, we really encourage everyone to ask questions throughout this whole webinar. So if you can see the panel, there is an option to ask questions. So you can answer, you can add any questions you have here for speakers. Ideally, you would even address the speaker that you have a question to, and then throughout this whole webinar, we will be able to, to address those.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. First, let's do a quick introduction. Our main guest today is Laurens. Laurens, can you introduce yourself, who you are, and your organization? Thank you.
Of course, yes. Thank you, Kees. Yes, Laurens Oostborg, owner of the company Look Inside. We develop store concepts for garden centers all throughout Europe. So we don't supply the shop fit material, but we do develop the complete store layout. We analyze also the sales and the turnover and the margin part for our customers, for the garden center owner. And based on that data, we provide them also with a really modified and adapted floor plan. We think about, okay, what should be the customer flow to optimize also the square meters of the garden center. And that is basically then developed into a full 3D visualization, so that for all the stakeholders that are going to be part of the build of a garden center, we'll have a clear idea of what it is about. And that's the thing that we do basically throughout all of Europe.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. We're really privileged to have you, Laurens. Thank you for your time. And then, of course, Remco, most of you know us. Remco has been in over 20 years in the sector as an expert coach, trainer, and also matchmaker. And together with me, he's developing market intelligence for CBI on home. A very valued colleague. And besides this, he also has his own business, Quokka, which does, I think, wheelchair accessories. Correct me if I'm wrong, Remco. That's Remco.
No, you're absolutely right, Kees. Shall I introduce you then?
Sure.
Kees has even more experience than I do. I think he's been in the business for what, 35 years, starting from the fair trade angle and being independent for what, 20 years now or something, or maybe a little bit less?
Something like that, I guess.
Something like that. And he has a very strong focus on sustainability also, because one of the things he's currently doing since a couple of years, he's also a jury member on the Ethical Style Guide. Now, all of you who want to or have participated in Ambiente, you must know the Ethical Style Guide. It is basically the green jury of Ambiente that checks if you tick some of the sustainable boxes which have become so important in these last decade. I'll give the floor to you, Kees.
All right, thank you so much. So, this is really your thing. So make sure you use the question box as much as possible. We really want to interact with you as we normally do. We want you to respond to us and to react. So we're starting with that right away. So make sure you know how the question box works. I already saw a few people actually saying hello, so that's good. You know how it works. Use it actively because we want to talk with you and not about you today. So this is what we're going to do. First, the meaning of the garden, and most important reseller in the garden business, and then sustainability, and then we'll summarize for you. Obviously, this presentation and the whole webinar will become available to you, I think, on the CBI website. So let's start right away. Consumer needs. So the best way of finding out what is the relevance in this case of the garden is to ask two questions. What, in other words, what is the consumer doing in the garden, and also why? So why is it so relevant to do that activity in the garden? So we've lined up a few examples, but we really want your input there as well. So what are people doing in the garden, and why is it so important to them to do that? First example. Remco, what is this nice lady doing?
Well, it looks to me as if she's growing a whole lot of flowers and she's really tending to them. And yeah, I mean, if you see this beautiful flower garden she has created.
Right. So yeah, obviously one of the first things people do in the garden is gardening, right? They can do this in different ways. This lady looks quite proud and quite a professional. So why would she be gardening? Remco?
Well, if you ask me, it could be for several reasons. Personally, I like to garden because it relaxes me. You can imagine a lot of people having a tough job, working hard, working in the garden. For a lot of people, has a very calming effect because you're in the nature. Yeah, other things that could be important for people to garden is to create something as a sort of fulfillment, create beauty, create more nature, all of these things.
Cool. Okay, let me see what we wrote down. So obviously, yes, it's a hobby. Most people are not gardening from necessity, but really as a form of relaxation, a peace of mind. Also recognition that she's quite proud that she's a good gardener. So she would like to get compliments for what she has achieved in her garden. You know, she looks quite proud, and she is quite proud because she's a semi-professional. This person here. And then we come to identity. She really wants to be recognized as having green fingers. You know, she's not the average gardener. She really creates her garden. So it's really close to who she is and what she values about herself. And then, of course, being close to nature is good for your health. And she would also be quite conscious about the environment and being able to contribute to the environment through her little garden. Okay, so what products are part of this? Obviously, gardening tools. Semi-professional. She's a good gardener, so she would value good tools. So she'd be in a slightly higher segment than the average gardener, I would say.
I think also there, I think also there the ergonomic part is also a very important issue. Also, you see also that here in Europe, the population is, especially the little bit elder group, is growing. So also for that, the gardening and then the focus on also the ergonomic of products is definitely something that is important. Yeah, could be, I think, also an addition to maybe this slide there. Yeah.
Exactly. So she would, you know, she doesn't want to break her back or sit on her knees all day. So she needs something to really help her in her posture. So that's a very good addition. Cool. Okay. So that's gardening.
How wide it can be, because if you do not focus on the tools alone, she has special boots and she has a special gardening apron. Yeah. So you can also venture out into neighborly kind of sectors.
Exactly. So the importance here is also that, let's say, she would be recognized as a semi-professional gardener. So she would value good stuff, good tools, good helps. Okay. Oopsie. Let me continue. Technology.
Yes.
Okay. So gardening as well. What else is happening here?
Well, if you ask me,
yeah.
Are you asking me?
No, generally.
Yeah. It looks as if the mother and daughter are growing stuff together.
Cool.
And it could be flowers, it could also be vegetables, but I think they're flowers.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think gardening, also parenting. I mean, this is mother and daughter, and what we see a lot, it's actually a huge trend, we'll find out later, is that this idea of parents teaching their children gardening. So why would that be important?
Well, basically to create a bond between your child and nature, to create a better bond between yourself and your child. In that sense, you're killing two birds with one stone, I would say.
Cool. Yeah. Cool.
I think also the education is definitely an important thing there as well, and that's something yeah, I think also it's important to transmit the values, and that education part of it is you can combine that with nature. It's definitely yeah, and then an interesting thing to do.
Yeah, cool. How does that translate into products? Anybody?
Yeah, basically your tools, your watering can, all your other tools, your little spades.
Yeah,
that's all part of the grow your own part there, which is super interesting also. And I think this is also a little bit more focused on the biological, about the sustainable part. You have the more mainstream tools, but I think here this is very much more for the gardening enthusiast that is also willing to spend maybe a little bit more, have some more authentic tools, and these kinds of things. I think it's very good target group there. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I see. You, if I pronounce your name correctly. He also says tools for kids gardeners. Yeah, for junior gardener. We see that a lot. Again, a huge trend is that if you want to teach your kid about gardening and everything, all the values around it there, then of course you would like them to have their own tools, fitting tools, not a huge spade, but maybe mini spades, mini watering can, all of that. Yeah?
And a small apron, do not forget, for those who produce textiles. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Okay, so parenting and the junior gardening are huge consumer trends, actually. We're coming back to that in a minute. Okay, then, okay, I'm going wrong again. Then again, gardening, but in a different way. Huh? What's happening here?
I think we're looking at a school class here. So gardening at school.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, why is this important? I think, Laurens, you've already almost answered it, but let's hammer it. Why is gardening at schools even happening right now?
I think also the having that education part in okay, how do vegetables grow? Huh? They don't grow in your fridge, but you actually have to do things in order to get them from the seed into the tomato plant, and then from there on. That's also, I think, part of the entire process that I think it's very good to explain it. If you nurture something, then you also have the benefits after a certain period of time from it. And I think giving that as a value also to the new generation is a super strong thing also to do, where you can actually use all the gardening products also, and also use it as a more like promotion thing in order to get people to the garden center itself. I think that's the place where these products are mainly being sold. And that's also good to get the new generation in there. Absolutely.
Cool.
Yes, catch them young, somebody says here.
Cool. Yeah. And nature is your best friend. So we're already mentioning reasons why it's important. We must realize that so many more people now live an urban lifestyle. They maybe don't have a garden or access to a garden, or not even maybe to parks. So to be taught and to have your little plots at school is really, really valuable. To understand about growing nature and connected. So
yes,
why?
And the actual activity of being with your hands in the earth, rather than sitting in a classroom trying to do math. Exactly. That's also nice.
Exactly. Cool. Yep. Again, products related to that are the products related to gardening, but then for kids, right? So in a playful way, you learn how to use your tools and how to really become a gardener maybe in the future. Or to understand about nature. So 3 types of gardening, you remember? So the proud semi-professional gardener to whom gardening is close to her identity, and then parenting, gardening between parent and child, and then gardening at school. Okay, so gardening obviously is a key activity in the garden. What else are we doing in the garden, people? Let me hear from you before I flip to the next slide. What else are we doing in the garden? Anybody? Let me get your questions in. Okay, family gardening, Shiraz. Yeah, possible. What else? Anybody? What else are we doing in the garden besides actual gardening? Family gathering is really, really spot on in different kind of ways. We'll show a few examples later. Okay, what else? Let me hear from you. Think about the garden and what can we do in the garden besides actual gardening?
Picnic, use different products, relaxation, yes. Soil management,
Ooh,
gardening
yeah.
as a social activity, landscaping, lounging.
Ooh, lots, eh? Lots.
Lots, yes.
Okay, let's see what we said.
Still, you were looking for another one, I think.
That's fine. It's fine. Okay, we see a lady here with veggies. What is she doing, Lawrence?
I think it's the picking the fruit of the work that she put in there for the whole entire season. So yeah, I think that's the main goal, getting yeah, your food and your things out of nature, of what you have been doing and cultivating the entire season.
Exactly. So is she doing this because she's hungry? I mean, are people in Europe hungry and that's why they grow their own? Or is it other reasons?
I do think that the belief of really knowing what's in it, I think you have more and more the discussion also about all the use of, on the one hand, the chemicals, on the other, the fertilizer, all these kinds of things, and that people are definitely growing more vegetables and fruits in their own garden. So because then they know exactly what has been put on there or not have been put on there. And that's definitely a trend that we see now for almost, I think it's been around seven years, something like that, that also garden centers are actually putting in a grow your own department, so to say, yeah, but really like focus all the products together that are related to this doing something with yeah, vegetables and fruits there. And I think also if you put it together as an activity instead of, oh yeah, we also had tools over there in the tool section, we had fertilizer there in the fertilizer section, but really combine it as a one-stop area where you have the little greenhouses, where you have the seeds, where you have all these tiny things together. I think that's yeah, it has been proven since 7 years that that's a very strong department and is still growing. So yeah, I think it's an important thing to keep in mind there. Yeah.
The big one, eh? So you really know what's happened to the fruit, eh? It's not been treated. You've made it yourself as an enormous source of pride as well. Eh? Somebody else also said. It's enormously satisfying to grow your own veggies, and not because you're hungry, but it's like, again, the hobby aspect. Eh? But of course, the pride is important. You should emphasize that, yeah, to grow your own food is like really, really cool thing to do, for especially for urban people who normally buy their veggies in the supermarkets. And then also health, closeness, self-improvement, because you study about how should I do this, how should I grow tomatoes, what's the best way to do it. You also learn a lot from it. Products.
Well, your gardening tools, obviously, which we've seen many times. And here you can even add, Lawrence already mentioned it, like these small greenhouses. Some people even go as far to put small greenhouses in their garden, completely with sunshades and watering systems, everything. And I also recall one time going around at the Paris Trade Fair Maison et Objet. They had a whole section with these beautiful greenhouses.
Yeah.
Quite impressive.
Yeah, there are actual brands focusing on it,
yeah,
in the market, especially from Germany. So yes, all of that is very true. Shall we try another one?
Sure.
What's happening here?
This was already mentioned, I think.
One addition to the previous slide. What I've seen a lot in, for example, Poland and also in France, is that this is one part, the actual growing part, and you need the tools. But then also in those countries, there is a lot of products also in the garden center that are related to storage of this. You know, you have all the glass jars, you have all these kinds of things to really put it, to make jam of it, to make how do you say it, like a strawberry jelly, all these kinds of things. That's also an assortment group which is super interesting to have, and as an addition also in your garden center.
Cool.
Because basically the customer goes to the garden center for the first, I don't know, say 80%, but then, okay, now we have it, what do we do with it? And that's also definitely an opportunity also for garden centers, if you talk about, okay, what is the range of products that can be sold also there?
Cool. So preserving your veggies and all of that, and jams and jellies out of it. Cool, good one.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this one. Remco, you were trying to explain what's happening here. We see people together looking at something.
Yes, well, it seems they're looking at the outcome of some sort of match or competition, or it could be like, you know, a garden competition. Who has grown the most beautiful flower, or the biggest tomato, or something like that.
Cool. So it's bringing the neighborhood together in a kind of garden judging competition. But why? Well, what is the underlying aspect of this? Why is this an example that is also relevant in terms of what people are looking for underneath this activity?
Yeah, well, you already mentioned it a couple of times, I think. So it's sort of professional pride, or semi-professional pride, in this case, you could say. But it's also nice because it unites the neighborhood. You could call it a way of community building, something like that.
Yeah, I think also it's a social interaction part which is super important there, and I think that's also what people that work in the garden. There are fairs where you can just exchange plants, without buying them, but you say, okay, I have grown it, I have multiplied it, and now I can exchange it for different plant species and so on. And that's definitely, people are looking for that social interaction also with others, and I think that's it's a human thing also to do that. So it's a good one.
Yeah, and the importance here is also that, you know, in urban spaces, often you don't know your neighbor anymore, huh? And now by doing gardening together and exchanging information and maybe even judging each other's end products, it brings the community together. It creates cohesion, huh? And that is something you can also communicate over and above your products. So your products, again, tools, I would say semi-professional, because these people are ambitious. They want to win a competition. So they are looking for not the average kind of tools, but a little bit beyond that. Okay, so community-based and social cohesion is a very important value underlying gardening. What is happening here, Remco?
Well, this was mentioned. Gathering. Yeah, this is the classic. Well, this is a classic picture case. Husband or father making everything on the barbecue, and the rest of the family gathered around it. I know that in my family they push me away and my daughters do the barbecuing, so maybe that's a new day and age which is dawning. But yes, barbecue, that's one of the things that well, preferably you do not do indoors. So cool. When it's nice weather, it's fantastic to do that in the garden.
Okay, why are we barbecuing, and why is Dad barbecuing in particular?
Well, it's we mentioned it before, but it's a source of pride. I think you once did a theme in Market Intelligence called Master Chef, and this is the story here. And I'll mention it again, but also he's wearing a special apron, his barbecue apron.
There's a little bit of an apron focus today. Yeah. So Master Chef, yes, he's showing off. He's really showing off. Maybe he's too lazy or he doesn't cook normally, but when it comes to the barbecue outside, he's the man, literally. So this is a big trend. And then we call this Master Chef because, you know, of course, just like the cooks and people barbecuing on TV and cooking shows, he wants to have the best tools around, to really like show that he's a professional chef as well. And then beyond that, of course, cooking and dining outside or inside is also a bonding thing. It brings people together, and everybody will be happy interacting. Okay,
It's very festive also, especially where we live, Laurens, Kees, you and the three of us. It doesn't happen too often that it's nice weather. So when it's nice weather, you almost celebrate it by going outside and barbecue.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, products, almost obvious. What are the products related to this?
Yeah, everything you need to cook, including the special apron.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And here, of course, you want the best tools, huh?
Yes, and this barbecue market has been crazy the last couple of years. I mean, they're selling these big green eggs for what, 5,000-6,000 euros, but you can also get a really nice barbecue for 50 euros. So the bandwidth is enormous.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think also the growing assortment around it, so having in the garden center also the sauces and all the accessories, I don't know, the peppers in I don't know how many varieties, olive oils, everything that you need in order to actually use it. So also there, I think it's convenience. When they buy the barbecue, then you also want to basically buy all the materials that you need, or the ingredients that you need. In France as well, in many cases there's a department, terroir, very local products also, and even there you have like complete like really fresh made meat and so on, which is then being sold also in the garden center. So it's an actual one-stop. You can just buy the barbecue, all the instruments. You can buy all the seasoning, all the meat itself, the vegetables, all in the garden center. So I think there it's really important to not only think about that main product, but okay, what can you also do around it to give the customer a very convenient way of buying it.
Cool. So there's a lot of promotion, as you can gather from Laurens, around this idea of barbecuing. And then for those of you who are eating and drinkware, obviously that's another opportunity and a very safe bet to also include your offer. Okay, are we ready for next one? What's happening here? One of you mentioned it, I think. Let me just check. Yeah, I see Shiraz here. You mentioned it in a broader sense, family gathering. This is definitely a family gathering, or family and friends. What is happening here?
Well, it's social bonding, but everybody is dining outside. Cool. And it's taking it, well, it's a sidestep to barbecue, because this doesn't have to be barbecue. And you can still cook inside, but dine, and they call it, you mentioned it, al fresco. So outside in the fresh. Yeah, socially, fantastic environment, soothing. Why not?
Cool.
Yeah. I think also that this is part of the extending the interior of your home into the garden. I think this is a very important thing, that what we try to do also in building up a concept for the garden center is that we say, okay, customers, they have a problem in mainly 3 areas. It's the garden, it's the inside, or it's at the terrace. And those are the main areas in the life of the customer where they want to do something. And if it's a problem, or if it's just renewing it because of the style, but it's mainly focused always in these 3 areas. And I think this outdoor terrace really should be seen as an extension of the inside of the house. And there you also see like blankets, you see everything to stay outside for a little bit longer. We here in Europe, we have quite a big seasonal change there as well. But people are definitely willing to stay outside a little bit longer if you have the right, I don't know, sometimes you have the heaters, but sometimes it's just a blanket, it's the cushions to make it cozy also in that terrace area outside of your house. Yeah.
So big thing, eh? So obviously this is for people doing tableware, table textile, dining furniture, outdoor furniture, candles, lighting. I mean, there's a whole lot of products that can fit into this key activity that here we call al fresco, which is, or how L Decoration would use it. We just simply say dining outside in the garden, but it has a whole bandwidth of products that you can use to cater for this event. So keep this in mind. Next one. Okay, what's happening here?
Looks like a game to me. They're playing.
Yep. To me as well. So obviously, a few of you also mentioned it. Yeah, playing. Kids and adults. So people play in the garden. It's a playground. If your garden is big enough, in particular. Yeah. So why is playing so important?
Well, basically it's interaction, and you can have it here, you have it between children, but you can have it between adults, you can have it between adults and children. So it's bonding, interaction, community.
Cool. Yeah. And fun, Fun. Okay. So products.
Also, the learning aspect is, of course, also part of it for the kids themselves. By playing, they also learn a lot. So instead of watching screens and playing on the iPad, just being outside in the garden is also a very favorable thing, I think, for many parents, including myself.
Yeah, cool. Good one. Good addition. So yeah, very important playing generally. And the garden is or can be really a playground as well. So think about that. Products related to that are obviously toys and games for outdoor. And much more. So we would also typically find those in places selling garden products. Okay, we've been quite active this far, and now we're not so active. What's happening here? A few things, I think.
Well, she started out reading, but she's sleeping now. So, but it's to me, the image strikes me as utter relaxation.
Cool. Yeah. So she's snoozing, sunbathing, and reading. Those are all like private individual activities that people also do in the garden. It doesn't always have to be being together, connecting, playing, joining up with the community, but it can also be, okay, now this is me doing what I want to do. So one important reason there is me time, peace of mind, recharging. Very important elements in people's lives, connected to this kind of huge undercurrent that we have in trends in home as well, which is wellness and well-being. So the garden is also this major place to recharge and to have me time, as we call it. Laurens?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Also, I think this is also a part of that extending the living space with just like sofas and so on. And I think also there you definitely see that sofas and garden furniture are getting more better. Definitely. Also, it's not like just a simple metal chair, which is only the only option, but you have full outdoor textiles which are very comfortable and can also just stay in the rain and in the kind of all weather things. So yeah, it's absolutely it's a massive part also in the garden center itself. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, here we up to now we had like really we kind of activities, community activities, and this is now me. I'm focusing on myself whatever I do. So passive recreation. This can be, as Laurens says, easy chairs like furniture, deck chairs, upholstered or with cushions. So a lot of this is related to actual furniture, and a lot of you are into furniture. So thanks for mentioning that, Julian. Kalhai, you also mentioned relaxing, but it can also be reading, but still it's me time.
Yeah.
Okay, Laurens, you already mentioned this. People are decorating the garden more than ever, more than ever. Okay.
Yeah, I think also there you see that in here in the Netherlands, and I think also in Germany, you have already quite a developed outdoor decoration department where we also focus, because we say, can we also like break it up the garden center a little bit in these 3 areas where you have everything for the garden, where you have everything for indoor, and where you have the terrace area. Because in my experience a few years ago, and still in some of the garden centers, they kind of mix things together, and then it becomes very unclear also for the customer. Okay, what is the intended use of this product? Can I put it outside when it's going to rain? Will it be destroyed, or is it only an indoor thing? And that also goes with the furniture as well, but also with the outdoor decoration. When you have solar lighting, for example, you have all these, as you can see, the hanging lamps, all these kinds of things. They are sometimes specifically made also for the outdoor. And I think that's super important also to distinguish that from the standard interior decoration stuff, which is much more available, I think. But then that outdoor area, to really make the garden part of that same look and feel that you have inside as well, I think there's definitely a market also for that to develop.
Cool. Okay, for the sake of time, we're moving on a little bit. Yes, of course, decorating your garden is as important to the consumer as decorating your inside home, the living room. It's really your style. You want to show your style. You want to show that you have style. So it's really close to your identity, your status feeling. You would like to your friends to compliment how you've decorated. So decorating both inside and outside is extremely important, and it goes for all these groups. Furniture, lighting, decoration, almost anything goes. That also goes for inside decoration. Keep this in mind, a very important group and growing. And that's, as Laurens already said, indoor is now really a separate part in garden centers. Okay, so we've talked about the garden, the private garden, but remember, there's also this indoor garden, let's say. People would like to also put plants, plant pots, and anything green and fresh inside their home. Not everybody has a garden, so to decorate your indoor garden is just as important to people that don't have an outdoor garden as the other one. So keep in mind that this is also a territory possibly for you. Yeah,
and basically here is happening what Laurens was already describing, that there's a very thin line nowadays between indoor and outdoor, and that works in 2 directions. Obviously, you can take the house into the garden and the garden into the house.
Exactly. And I think also there, it's another part of one of the big trends also, like globally, it's the biophilic design, which also says that people are just really innately connected to nature. And that's also why you see in basically all of the restaurants, but also in other retail, you see all office spaces, you see all these plants coming in there, being put in there, and then sometimes it's fake, but now more and more you see that they also really want to use real plants. And yes, it's maintenance, and you have to water them, and it's a lot more work, but people really care about it. And that's definitely something that we also see in the garden centers. Of course, it's the best possible retail channel to be working when you talk about plants, but also in clothing, and also in, as I said, in restaurants, but also offices. And things get more green also when you look at the latest developments there. Even vertical walls, everything will be installed also to get that indoor garden, as you say here, inside of the house or the office or the restaurants.
Thanks. Yeah, the office is an important addition, and then also a huge trend is the tiny garden. This is your balcony or any tiny spaces that you might have just outside. For the urban citizen, they might have a balcony, and there also they want to do their gardening as possible and get the same experience from closeness to nature that they would have from a formal outside garden. So keep those 2 extra territories in mind. The normal outside garden, but the indoor garden and a tiny garden. Okay, now from this, and also for time's sake, we looked around a little bit, the three of us, at major trends in the garden related to consumer behavior and product trends. I'll just run you through this because a few we have already mentioned, and we'll comment on a few extra. Okay, so here they come. This is a first flower shooting up. So pleasing the senses, this is very important. We want to touch, feel, see color, feel texture. The garden does that a lot. Garden products also do this a lot. They work on your senses and therefore on your well-being. Oopsie. So show me your tools has to do with the fact that today, a lot of gardeners now identify themselves as a semi-professional gardener, and they want to have good tools, including this father of the dad who wants to have a professional barbecue. Show me your tools is all about the revaluation of gardening tools and going slightly up into the segments.
Yeah, status, Kees?
Yeah, relates to status. You want to show that you're a really good gardener. Water is an important thing to collection of water. So water containers, watering cans, water features. We're now much more conscious that fresh water is going to be a scarce product for the future, in the future of our world, and therefore to collect water and to have water features is very important and really happening in trends at the moment. Okay, grow your own. We discussed it and how important it is. It's an activity people do in the garden, but it's also a key trend at the moment. Everybody is trying to grow their own, and the garden centers are playing on that sentiment. Particular product trend is bird houses and insect hotels. Very much.
One of the comments also in the question was also this product group, and I think it's definitely super interesting. Also, the complete biodiversity is also one of the things that people are really picking up on, and we're giving room to nature also in their garden. What can you do for the bees and the birds and also the insects? So it's definitely an important one, which was in the beginning mainly for winter, that then people would really start caring with all the winter food and things like that. And now it's a year-round thing in garden centers where this is definitely an important one, not only for insects, but also for, I don't know, you have the hedgehogs, you have all these kinds of different animals, natural in that environment, which are being supported also to stay there. And yeah, so it's an important one, absolutely.
Exactly. So beyond looking after your plants, people are now also looking after any animals they might have in their garden. And then the question to you is, how could you play into that? This is one example. Composting, it's very important. This also links to not throwing away your excess food, but maybe have a composter in your home or in your garden. And using it to refresh your soil. Composting is a huge trend in the garden. So if you can have containers or composting tools, that is going to be very interesting. Meadow lawns, you know, we're not just want grass all over the garden, but we're trying to diversify into more plants, more flowers, to also attract more insects and more different insects. This is biodiversity. In an outdoor furniture, we talked about it and how they are merging, but a big trend. So a big opportunity for those of you doing furniture. Shelter, garden houses and fences. People also want to be sheltered and create some privacy. And so a lot of people are offering different types of fencing of different materials. Smart gardening, this is about using electronic or app-based solutions to water your plants, to measure the condition of your plants, to maintain your plants. So electronics and computer technology are moving in to the garden as well. Keep it in mind. Okay, the coordinated gardening, one style in and out. We discussed it as a source of, as a way of showing your style and how coherent your style is. You can do the same thing inside and out. Almost there. Alfresco dining, we talked about it as a major activity, but it's also still a major trend. And how can you help the consumer to have nice dining parties outside? The junior garden, we talked about it, so that can translate into actual tools adapted to children and teenagers. Okay, local and exotic plants. Most of you are not into plants, but this is important also from two perspectives. To have local plants also means lower footsteps and to create an environment that belongs to the area and the part of the world that you live in. Exotic plants are interesting because they can tell a story, and storytelling has become very important also in garden centers. If you can talk about where this plant came from and how you should nurture it, that's again, storytelling is very important, as it is in home. Storytelling about your products is just as important as storytelling in plants. We see that as a huge trend. Finally, the tiny garden, we just mentioned it in passing, but a huge trend. People with balconies or whatever, they also want to garden. And how can you facilitate that? Okay, let's move on for time's sake. So we think many opportunities. You mentioned so many already. So there's many product applications and extensions. So think about, from your perspective, what you could offer for the garden. And the second is, you now see that there's different customer types, from the professional gardener to the parent teaching about gardening to people eating out in the garden. There's different customer types and therefore also different segments. Think about Dad and his barbecue. You know, he would go for a very fancy one and fancy tools, but maybe the average person barbecuing would go for a mid-segment kind of barbecue set. So think about product applications and customer types, or in other words, segments.
Yeah, this is something we always stress as segments, that we see Europe not as a collection of different country markets, but you can look at Europe as a whole, and the segment you cater to, that is more important for you. So your lower segment, your middle segment, or your higher segment. And that's important to realize. And this is always also mentioned in all the product fact sheets that we write for market intelligence.
Good. Okay, cool. Let's move on for time's sake about the marketing side and the shopping in garden. So 2 questions here. One is where? In other words, where does the consumer shop when it comes to the garden? Important for you to know. And then how does that consumer shop? Remco.
Well, yeah, if you come to the distribution, well, there's a couple of things we have to think about. We have the classic distribution system, which I will explain shortly. And what I will do then next is ask Laurens, being a garden expert, in what way maybe the garden part of this sector has its own specific little distribution channels or ways to get your products to the European market.
Mm-hmm.
Kees, if you can show the next slide. Yeah, now this is basically our traditional chain. You see on the left, you see you, the little, the SME, the producer, and on the far right, you see the consumer. Now the classic way is that you, as a producer, you sell to the importer wholesaler. And importing means that the buyer, your buyer, buys your goods, has them usually shipped, stores them in their warehouse, and in their turn, they sell to the smaller retailer. And the consumer goes to the small retailer, and look how happy he or she is with bags full of garden products. And this is basically the model for what you could call volume production. If you do container loads or half container loads, but not single pieces. However, if your production capacity is relatively limited, you can always consider directly selling to the smaller retailer. And this is important in the sense that smaller retailers, they have to compete with the larger retailers or the retail chains that can do their own importing. And one way how they compete with the smaller chains is by offering products that the bigger chains do not have. And if you can buy products straight from the producer, products that are not sold so much in the EU, you create like a unique proposal. So this is what we call an alternative kind of distribution channel. Now, the story is, yes, this is the one I wanted to see. If you do volume production and you sell straight to the importer wholesaler or straight to the retail chain, you usually sell FOB. Kees and I, we always tell our companies it's safer to work on FOB terms than on CIF. But you see that these are the bigger parties, the importers or the self-importing retail chain. They have so many stores that they have the buying power to order directly from somebody who sells container loads. Now, this is the story I was already mentioning. The moment you are a smaller producer, you can do smaller quantities, and you have a clientele of independent retailers or very small chains. They can order with you directly, but you have to make sure that all the products you send to them are delivered to their doorstep. Incoterms are DAP or DDP. Yes.
Cool.
Now, the story with these importers, wholesalers, you have specialized ones which are cross-category. For instance, they sell all kinds of products. If we're looking at today, you could say they're selling garden products, but also products for the interior. But you also have specialized importer wholesalers, people who only do furniture, or people who only do garden products, or people who only do textiles, etc. Now, the retail chain, usually they have a wide variety, but as Laurens will also explain, you will have specialized chains like focusing on home products for the indoor alone, or products that are for the garden alone. And the best example we have in Europe is the so-called garden center.
We'll focus on that in a minute. Huh?
Yes. Now, other examples are, sorry, Kees, you can go one back. Are the department store, that's also a wide variety of different products, and the super or hypermarket, which is also a wide variety of products, and usually in the lower price category.
Cool. Okay, that's Carrefour in France and people like that. Eh?
Yeah, and Tesco's, you got plenty of them. Yeah. Now, the new channels are basically what we already described, an alternative channel where producers sell directly to smaller retailers. Volume production, one of the most, how do you say that, classic examples is AliExpress, that started selling straight from the country to the consumer. And what you see nowadays also is that importers, wholesalers, they've also found the consumer as a target, and they open their own web shop. So for instance, take a Dutch wholesaler, they sell to European retailers all over Europe, but they also open a web shop for direct sales to consumers, basically also to diversify their channels and to also tap into customers with higher margins.
Cool. Now the question begs, how does this actually work in the garden? Laurens, what model is the most used model? Do we find importer wholesalers or retailers?
I think it's a good mix of all of them already. You know that because I think one of the things with garden centers in Europe is that it's one of the industries which are still where still a lot of family-owned businesses are very active, very successful, but also very active. And I think what you see in, for example, DIY industries is that the smaller stores, they have been bought up by the bigger ones. And now also in the Netherlands, for example, because it's an easy example for us, you had a lot of these specialty stores in kind of all the villages and cities, all maybe franchise things. And now what you see is they have been, or just by competition, they are closing down because of the bigger groups. They basically buy all the small ones and they say, okay, then we kind of erase them and we put in one big store in this area. And garden centers, it's funny that there are a lot of garden centers. There's one example also in it. It's a 25,000 square meter garden center, but it's only one. It's a family-owned thing. And so these garden centers, they are mainly listed with a buying group. And this buying group, they also go to, I don't know, they go to China and they go to all different countries in order to see, mainly to the trade shows, in order to see a collection of things like that. And they buy basically directly from there. Sometimes they even go, okay, we have met them at the trade show somewhere in a foreign country, and then you have this direct opportunity also to do business also with these garden centers. Of course, you also have the bigger retail chains, and they basically buy also directly from there. And you also in the Netherlands, you have a lot of importers, wholesalers that are doing pre-collectioning. And then the garden centers go there and they buy their material from it. So I think the garden center is definitely a good mix of these three different versions of getting the products, and the other way around also getting to the garden center as a production company.
Cool. So yeah, for me, quite an eye opener of what you're saying is that it's not as in other sectors in home, really dominated by big chains, but there's also this individual retailer who can be quite big still, that is active and hasn't been eaten and swallowed by the bigger chains. So the smaller retailer is
also, that's really like an opportunity also, because I think when you're working with the big chains, it's all about how much can you produce, and then many of the smaller production facilities are they are unable to address that. But I think also in the garden center, because it's still quite small. Also, if you look at France, there are still groups of garden centers which are about 12 to 15. Here in the Netherlands, you even have a lot of them which are just, as I said, just one garden center. But they are doing very good, and they are also sending their people to China or to India, Indonesia, in order to buy stuff there. So I think that's a very important one for all the exporting companies there also, is to not only focus on the big ones, because there are still a lot of the small ones also there, which are super interesting to do business with.
Cool. And then you're saying that's interesting, and then you're also saying these smaller ones usually use buyer groups, and that sounds to me could be the main target if you're an exporter, to find those buying groups. And then you also said, and they usually go to not only travel, but they also go to fairs. So that would be a place to meet those buying groups. Is that correct?
Absolutely, that's definitely correct. Yeah.
And Laurens, if I may ask, from my past in textiles, I recall that especially from Germany, we had a lot of buying groups. Is that still the case? Is that also in garden that Germany is dominant in buying groups, or are buying groups found all over Europe?
They're really found all over Europe. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's I think what for me described Germany is a very much trade show country. So there are a lot of trade shows also there, which are very international. They are also super interesting because they bring basically a lot of customers that I also know from Europe are going there, because it's a very efficient way of meeting a lot of new people there, and new suppliers also. But yeah, I wouldn't say that Germany is in terms of buying group a stronger one than other countries. I think
Okay.
it's very much more divided up to the countries. Yeah.
Clear.
And in terms of trade fairs, are we thinking SPOGA, GAFA, or
Yeah,
other
IBM,
regional fairs?
GAFA, Christmas World is also one which is super interesting, also as an international supplier, also to attend or to maybe visit it for the first time and then decide yourself whether it's an interesting one to participate in. But that's definitely something where I also get back from my customers, which are basically the customers also for the target audience that we're talking to, is that it's still a very efficient way of meeting new suppliers there. So it's definitely something that that still works.
It might sound funny to go to Christmas World, but obviously you should bear in mind that the garden center is also a key place for the consumer to buy all their Christmas needs, all the Christmas decoration,
Absolutely,
the stuff you put in your home to celebrate Christmas, which is a huge thing in Europe. Okay, any questions from you people in the chat box, in the question box about the distribution before we maybe move on to the garden center, which is this key reseller place in garden? So just let's hear from you, otherwise we move on, and then you can still come back with your questions. Let's move on to the garden center, which it says here is a key shopping destination for anything related to the garden. Let's go through this. All right, Laurens.
Yeah, so this was the one that I mentioned. It's also a built-off kind of in this presentation. So don't expect that all of the garden centers look like this in Europe, because they don't. Absolutely not. But this was for me definitely an example also of a garden center that says you don't come here only for the products. This is really about an experience. It's a day out. It's spending time with your family to just go there. It's also the inside of this store is you have a lot of things to do there as well. There's a big restaurant in there. There's a play area in there for kids. They have a kind of a big exhibition also where they have these animated dinosaurs in there as well. So it's really like a day out. And the result of it should be that people also take products with them. But that's in many cases now, it's not the main goal to sell the products, but it's a logical kind of follow-up of the visit to a place like this. But I think that's an important thing to know, because I also know that the concept of a garden center in Europe is quite it's a special thing also. And in this store, this is 25,000 square meters. Here you also see those basically three areas. So on the right-hand side, you see everything for the garden. On the back side, you have all the garden furniture. During now this period, it's fully converted into a Christmas show. And on the left side, you have all the way to the left, you have the warehouse, but then the rest of that area there is all the indoor home decoration, indoor plants, and so on. So this was for me also a good example to show you, okay, it's really built up like, okay, everything for the garden, problematics that customers have, everything for the terrace, and everything for the home decoration indoor part of the life of a customer. Yeah.
And obviously, Laurens, this is not in the middle of a city, yeah?
No, this is also, yeah, exactly. This is it's far away from the city center, so it's also for the customer. It's a day out, so they really have to drive quite far. It's definitely I think the first bigger city is about 20 to 25-minute drive. So, and that's the first one. So, but they are attracting people that are driving, I don't know, an hour, 1.5 hours to go there. And then also the idea is that, okay, if you are there, then you do want to spend more time. So then you also want to make it a comfortable experience. So that's also why in the entrance there are toilet groups, or there is a restaurant, there is all the facilities in order to also stay there for a longer period of time. Yeah.
Cool. So don't think, again, as Laurens said, But all the garden centers look like this like huge place. Most of them are actually much more compact and smaller, but most are actually outside of town. So it's called in marketing destination shopping. You really drive there with a specific purpose of either entertainment and or buying your garden products, obviously. So they're always on the outsides of town. Isn't that a weakness, Lawrence? I mean, to be outside of town?
No, I think what you also see in the development there is that in some of the garden centers are now kind of in the city center, but that's also because the city centers grow. So you in the beginning they were also on the outside part of the garden, or sorry, of the city. But because the city grew, they are now inside of it, and then in many cases the business is not only exploiting the garden center, but sometimes the business is also selling the land for apartment spaces and so on, and then we move out of the city again to have a new spot, have a new location, have a new garden center building as well. Which kind of caters to the nowadays requirements also of the shopping. So no, I don't think it's if you're big enough and you make it comfortable, but that's definitely a choice also. You cannot just do convenience garden center shopping when you have to drive too far.
Exactly. So that also means you must do your communication really well as a garden center, because you're outside of town, but you need that space for all your plants and everything.
Yeah, but you also see that they do a lot of activities, they have workshops, they have all these kind of other things in order to get the people there to increase that frequency of visit to the garden center.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Just tell me to flip.
This is an example in Estonia, also a very modern garden center that has been built there. A very nice one also to visit, but also it kind of has all of these elements that we just discussed in there as well. So the restaurant part is there. They convert a big part into Christmas area. It's really like a Christmas world as well. But here also the focus on the right side is outdoor, on the left side is home deco. So it's also there. I think it's something that to stress again. It's really have a look at what range of products and what is the goal, what is the target there? Is it for the outdoor, for the garden, or is it for home decoration?
Cool. Lots of opportunities for you in different categories. It always strikes me that garden centers, in terms of architecture, they still look like the old glass houses, as if they were like glass houses for plants. But of course, in many respects, the plants are still there, but it's much more now. It's home.
If you look at the turnover share of plants in, especially in the net, it's an average about 50%. So 50% is actual plant sales and 50% is hardware related, home decoration, furniture, all these kinds of things, pottery. And that's also what we see now in the last few years is that also the buildings are a little bit changing as well, because as you correctly said, it still looks like a production house for plants, but 50% of the turnover doesn't come from plants. So and what we do also with our concept is that it's not ideal when you want to present cushions in a fully glass house where UV light is coming in and it discolors all the packaging and all that. So we bring in some ceilings, and now with the new architecture, you definitely see that also the price of a greenhouse as it was for production was quite low, but the expectations now is to have more comfort. It should be the climate should be nice. It shouldn't like drip through the roof and so on. So the architecture is also much more different than it was before in the new projects, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving inside now, also for time's sake. What are we seeing when we walk inside?
Yeah, so this is a project in Austria. This was an old farmhouse which was then converted into a garden center. And here you also see that it's really about creating a nice setting also. So it's not about just put in the shelves, no communication at all, but it's really how can you envision the future use of that product. And in many cases, it's making a nice display, making a nice presentation of the combination of products. And I think it also indicates that this is impulse buying. I think 100% of the products in a garden center is not something that you need. It's something that you want to have, but it's not something that you need. And I think that's an important thing also to keep in mind, that it's an impulse buy. So you have to be able to present it in a nice way. And that also is sometimes what distinguishes DIY stores that also sell home decoration with garden centers. Garden centers have a little bit more feel for how to present it and how to seduce the customer also not to buy only one product which is in the shelf, but maybe to buy that combination of 3 products because that makes a nice setting.
Cool. So here we see even like cushions, candle holders. We talked about this a lot, bird and insect houses. But then you can also sit and have your coffee, even like down to real like lunch places inside. Is that, do you see that happening a lot?
Yeah. We don't see any new garden centers plans without a restaurant anymore. So it's really definitely like a vital part also of the garden center business is to have a good restaurant, a coffee area there where people can have that moment of relaxation, that moment of pause, and then afterwards continue with shopping again.
Cool. So it's also a way of keeping people inside longer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. Yeah. In many cases, it's also like the restaurant is at halfway of the entire customer flow. So people that walk half of the garden center, then you have the pause moment, you have the restaurant, you drink a coffee because you get a little bit exhausted of all of the overwhelming assortment of products that they have, and then you take your moment, and then afterwards you continue again. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, here we see some nice displays again, combining different solutions for plants, pots, etc. Yeah, still a big chunk of the collection, plant pots and related.
But you see also what the difference does when you put in a few plants there. Right? It immediately comes to life also, and I think again that is also what sets garden centers a bit apart from the only hardware stores and industries. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, a little bit of color here.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a more typical garden center first view. I think in many cases now you see more products in the shelves and so on. So it's this was, I think, maybe beginning of the season or something like that. But you see the mix of all the different type of products. So it's not like a mass market where you have, I don't know, like supermarket where you have aisles of one product coming in. This is really about, okay, what is the activity that your customer is doing, and how can you present everything that they would need together, and also to really activate that cross-selling of multiple products instead of only one.
Cool. Yeah. So we see watering cans here, bird houses, a lot of plant pots, combinations of furniture and accessories. So it's all there. It's a one-stop shop. Finally, nice displays here of different materials. Some of the materials you can also supply. So keep that in mind. That there's a lot of options, even in one category or one product group like plant pots or plant containers. There's a lot you can do, and it also becomes.
Here on the left side, you also see like in the shelf, it's a one trying to do that one stop. Also, you have the fertilizer, you have the pots, you have the plants there. So it's really what is the end product that the customer needs in order instead of we only sell the pot here and then you have to look for your plant somewhere else. And you also need the fertilizer, but it was in a different department. It's really try to bring everything together so that your customer is very comfortable in buying the solution instead of the separate products.
Cool. Okay. Opportunities, Remco.
Well, obviously, Lawrence indicated there's all kinds of players. You have these buying groups, you have these independent garden centers, family-owned businesses, but you have also chains. So actually, you could say that if you compare it to the traditional home decoration, home textiles market, there's a little bit more variation.
Yeah.
So, which is nice, I think. It always makes it a little bit more complex, but I would say at the other hand, there's also more opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the garden center, it's all about lifestyle. So one-stop shop, maybe for the entire home, including specific seasons like Christmas, and it's all about experience. And this is something you can also contribute to in terms of your stories or and being part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, opportunities for you. For time's sake, let's move on to the final subject, and not the least important, it's people and planet issues. We're all concerned with that. We've touched upon a lot already, I would say, of that. And so if you look at the social side, we see this proud gardener. And gardening is about connecting, which is a deep human need, I would say, to connect. We are social constructs, and so therefore we need to connect. We learn and we teach in the garden, and we play in the garden, and then also we relax in the garden. So when we're in the garden, we're almost showing the best version of ourselves. And underlying all of this is this huge current of wellness and well-being, which is related to everything, to learning, to connecting, to relaxing, to playing. We are, in terms of the garden, the best version of ourselves. So to put to you, and not to answer now, is how can you inspire social change? How can you, in your products and in your messaging, emphasize all these meanings that have such an important contribution to make to the consumer's well-being? Ponder over this. Okay, not for now, but this could be homework that you discuss. This could be products, this could be storytelling, communication, touching all those values that are so important on a human level as related to gardening. Okay, then you see this image of the gardener sitting in his garden and looking down at the urban area. A lot of nature, it's all connected. And then even if we look up, we see the planets. So of course it's like an imaginary image. But the question many people are putting to themselves, so if the Earth is a garden, if we see the Earth, the total planet, as a garden, do we, or you also, not have a duty to cultivate, tend, and use it responsibly? This was a caption of a major garden exhibition in the Vitra Design Center last year, and they put it to us. Say, yeah, okay, let's imagine that the planet is a garden. So what is our responsibility now in terms of gardening the planet? Not literally only, but also making sure that we battle climate change, that we are more responsible in using the products from nature, and all of that. So that's the second question that we'd like to leave you with, is how can you contribute to a better planet in terms of environment and nature? Think about that. Those are two more philosophical questions for you to answer, and this could be related to your use of materials, the use of energy in production, the communication you are doing, and all of that. And the garden offers a lot of opportunity as well to be more connected to planet Earth.
Maybe to add that case, what you definitely see, and where we are also part of a lot of discussion groups also for garden centers all over Europe, and the sustainability part is not only a not only a demand anymore, but it's an actual it's something that you need to comply with as a supplier also in the upcoming years. Also here in the Netherlands, there's a lot of lawmaking things that also address this issue as well. So and I think it will be quite a challenge also for many of the garden centers to find the right way. So also I think it's a real opportunity for you as a supplier when you can help your customer, I don't know, avoid things, help them with getting things done, help them with that importing part with all the documents and all the things that you need, that you can actually supply it also to them, because it will be quite a challenge. And that's, as we discussed there, on the one hand, there is an advantage in having a lot of privately owned and small garden centers still, but I think also for them, this is quite a challenge also that they are being faced with. So if you can help them in supplying with the right documents, regulations, and so on for that sustainability part, which is coming, it's definitely something important also. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's worthwhile that you mention it. It's what Kees and I always tell in our coaching also. At one point in time it's desirable, but then at a certain point it becomes mandatory and you have no choice anymore.
Yeah, think about the EUDR, the deforestation regulation that is supposed to be enacted 1st of January, but that's been postponed a little bit. But that's for those of you who are wooden, have wooden-based products. Yes, get your house in order and help your distributors in getting all the documentation done. The same goes for any certifications. If you're using textile-based materials for your home products, again, certification helps a lot for the retailer, also in their storytelling and in also being an instrument for a more positive approach towards climate change. Huh? So good point. I think this kind of finishes our discussion for today. So contribute to consumer wellness. It's such an important and vital value, human value and human need for all of us. This is the social side, and help battle climate change and improve biodiversity. And those are the two angles related to people and planet. In other words, sustainability. Okay, we hope it's been interesting. Let me just quickly flip through what we have said. So yeah, we have the active gardener, a very important target group as a consumer. We have the passive gardener in many different ways. This is an opportunity for you in terms of what people do in the garden. We have the entertainer, also a person or a consumer you might be able to cater to. We have the decorator. They want to decorate their home as well as the garden. Another opportunity for you. We have the distributor. Laurens has been telling us a lot about what the distributor needs and how they act. So keep that in mind and cater to their needs. We have social change and the garden, a very important and related value. And we have improvements in climate change and biodiversity. Okay, take these last two slides with you and discuss in your team what you could do to contribute to a better world. All right, and then we have the constrained gardener, the gardener who does not actually have the outside garden or the space, or might be living in a cramped urban space, but they still have their garden inside, and also a tiny garden maybe at the balcony. Okie dokie. End of session. Remco, any final words from you?
Well, I'd like to thank Laurens for his insights, because you and I, we're more generic experts, but I think Laurens has brought a lot of specialized garden knowledge to the table. And I think that has lifted this webinar to a better level. Thanks.
Very welcome. Thank you also for having me in this panel as well. Yeah, very good.
Okay, then thank you so much, all of you. We were close to 100 people today. and we are grateful for your energy and inputs. This presentation will become available, I think, online on the CBI website. Correct me if I'm wrong, soon. So then you can go over it again and take your picks from it. Thank you so much, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Good.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.